Greetings, students. Hope everyone is doing well. This is our final class for this semester. I am glad that you are available and watching this class. This is one of my most controversial lessons to teach. Never been taught on YouTube or anything like that before. This is something that is exclusive for Shalom Health students. And I'm really about to dig deep into the subject that a lot of people may find not so true. That's only because they've been indoctrinated with the alkaline marketing thing, I would say. So I hope everyone can hear me clearly. So as we dig deep into this subject of the benefits of acids, everyone should have their worksheets. I'm about to fill out their information if you want to take any additional notes. If you want to leave any questions right there while we're on this topic, please ask them, and then I can go back and forth with you guys from the class. So, when we think about acids, a lot of people think of something that's burning. And the first thing people think about is pretty much stomach acid, maybe. Sometimes people think about the stomach acid coming back up and causing what they call acid reflux. And we always think of something that's burning, and acid is bad. And the second thing people may think about is a person on drugs that may be on acid. Well, that's something that's burning, and that may be somewhat true. But the whole universe, or at least on this planet, the Most High has already put this particular language for us to be able to understand. And it's all based on acids. And I want to show you this language because we all have it embedded in our DNA. And in our DNA is basically an acid. So whenever we see a sugar phosphate group, which are pretty much these, this contains our genetic code. Our genetic code is a part of the blueprint. It's our double helix strand that can wrap around the earth 3 or 4 times. This is our blueprint that instructs all of our cells, our proteins, on what to do. And it's all based on acids. Now, what is a DNA? Well, basically deoxyribonucleic acid. And the ribose is basically a sugar structure, and it's going to be more attractive to all acidic phosphate groups. Now, I want to draw a phosphate group up here because I didn't draw it, but basically it is a phosphate that sits here. It's double bonded to one of the sugars, and all of these on this benzene ring, this is a sugar group, guys, that has nitrogen in it. Nitrogen, I said on Facebook that God does not make anything without using nitrogen. The planet is full of 78% nitrogen, so it is to say that all of our DNA has a nitrogen base in it. So we can make ammonia really fast, just based on our DNA. Now, this is all of our muscle cells, our organ cells. Everywhere in our body, we're going to have a nitrogen compound to all of our DNA. So the phosphate is always double bonded to oxygens. And when it's not double bonded, then it doesn't have a deoxy. So what they mean by deoxy is it has an oxygen base to it. So as you see here, thymine has an oxygen base on it, and it can be substituted from another nucleotide, because everything is made up of a building block, guys. So think about the proteins. It has amino acids that build up, the carbohydrates have to build up, and you also have the nucleotides that build up the DNA. So every one of them has an acidic phosphate group. So just to show you that DNA is a part of meat, it's a part of animal products. There are certain things that it's made of, like the guanine, and you guys can put this on your sheets. Cytosine. These are all nucleotides. So we got adenosine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. And if it's a RNA, which means it does not have an oxygen molecule to it, it's basically a sugar and an acid. So it can be substituted, the thymine can be substituted with a uracil. So that's the five main nucleotides that build up a DNA. Now, when you're dealing with genes, a lot of people ask, what is a gene? Well, a gene is basically a part of the DNA. It's just a little small section that builds up what you call your blueprint for your eyes, a blueprint for your hair structure. Those are genes that we are born with. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I don't have my what's name. That right there. I just want to let you guys know that when I was talking about last week the antioxidants and how meat does not have oxygen, well, once it basically decays out, it's going to have nothing but purines in there. The purine is a part of the DNA. It's basically an adenine and a thymine, and it's the only section in it that has purines in it. You guys can look up purines and pyrimines. Those are the biggest structure inside of all animal products. So humans are animals. If you think of it, all cows, all chicken, all have a purine group in it. And the purines, if they build up so much, they will cause basically uric acid to build up, and that's a bad acid that we all associate with the joints, the gout, and all those type of things. So purines is a bad byproduct of the DNA when it's in large amounts. So if you wanted to really know if meat was acidic, yes, it is a DNA, and it makes other byproducts once we're going through the cooking process. So a lot of them have adenine and guanine in it as the DNA, which make up purines. Another thing that the meat also has, since we're talking about it, is it makes a byproduct of different amino acids. So before we get into that, I gotta talk about hydrochloric acid. So everyone knows that the hydrochloric acid in our stomach, it has to sterilize whatever harmful bacteria that is there when we were eating our food. So say for instance we were eating meat and we needed something to break it down, so they would use pepsin as an enzyme inside of that stomach acid and basically break down the different proteins, the different amino acids. And once they break down, a lot of meat products have carnitine in it, and they have choline in there. So if you're eating eggs, you have choline plus carnitine. It's going to make a byproduct called basically trimethylamine oxide. This is a nitrogen group that you don't want to have this in your system. This is the buildup of the fatty acid streaks inside of the blood vessels. So if they ever came to you asking what was one of the byproducts that can cause a heart disease, TMAO would be that product. So as they're releasing this hydrochloric acid releases its proteins for digestion. One question always comes to me asking, how come the stomach acid doesn't burn the stomach lining? Well, the stomach lining is made up of these parietal cells, and they're really gelatinous and mucus-like. And what they do is really protect the covering of that stomach lining. And whenever you're consuming like gelatin, whenever you're consuming things like aloe vera, it really engulfs and feeds on this protective gelatinous material. So that's the reason why the stomach doesn't digest itself, and that's the reason why it does not burn itself. It can get thrown off of balance when we're using certain acidities that's lower than a 0.1. So the stomach acid is basically at a pH of 1.5 to 3. If something goes under that, that's when you can create a hole in that stomach. The gastric fluids are basically too low, and the fermentation will start to create. So a person that has acid reflux, GERD, or indigestion, the stomach acid is really, really low, so all of that food starts to ferment and create a hydrogen gas. So I had up here, my assistant, I'm going to show everyone that I have some stomach acid up here. We like to use something like an anti-acid. Everyone knows what the milk of magnesia is. I shake this up. And that really settles our stomach. So right here, all I have in this bottle is water. It's distilled water. So I want to pour a little bit in there. And I use a pH indicator. This is called a universal indicator. So this tells me which pH it's going to be. So as you see, the pH is a dark purple. I'm going to go ahead and get my stirrer going. So dark purple is around a pH of more like 11. Okay, so we all know that the acids range between 0 to 7 or 0 to 6.9. And we know everything above that is a base. So some people call it alkaline. So what I was going to do is add some of our stomach acid in there. And you'll be able to see how this changes the pH. It's really fast, but because of the hydrogen ions that are in the milk of magnesia, it's changing from a 7 to a 8 really fast. It should easily go down to a 9. Well, it started off at orange, like a 2. You can't see the scale here. If I had some ice, this would slow the reaction down really, really fast. But as you can tell, the magnesium ions are fully engulfing everything in the stomach acid. That's why we neutralize our stomach acid when we're going through stomach upsets. That's what the milk of magnesia does. So I just wanted to show that because we're talking about hydrochloric acid, and I'm going to be using lemons. And I had a little small thing here. We know that lemons also have a good pH, an acidic pH. I want you guys to really think about this acidity, because the acidity really speeds up our electrons in our system and starts to make more ATP molecules. So acids like to communicate with other acids. This right here is a carbohydrate, guys. If you haven't realized that, this has carbon, this has hydrogen, it also has oxygen. So all fruits mostly is a carbohydrate. They are based on glucose and fructose, and fructose has a different pathway, a longer pathway to get through. So it's the citric acid that's in the lemons. We did a good class on the power of lemons, talking about the pH factors of that lemon. It's around, let's see here. I don't have anything to cut this with. I'm just going to squeeze it out. Now the most common fruits out there that are acidic, most of them are acidic. We can talk about pineapples having all of its different acids in there. And we can talk about apples having their acidity. very, very famous acid in the apples is called malic acid. These things help break down sludge and cholesterol and LDL. We try to balance those things out. So as you see, we got some lemon juice, and it does have citric acid in there. You can put a indicator in this just to see what the pH is, and it turns red. That should let you know that lemon juice is the same pH as our stomach acid. So it's beneficial. That means that anybody that's going through indigestion, instead of using milk of magnesia, which basically puts it at a higher pH that can kind of disturb it, if you use lemons, you won't even have the indigestion because it makes it secrete more. You will still have low stomach acid with this. So that's just something I wanted to show. I have apples here. The malic acid is very, very important. I use these in our protocols when it comes to liver flushing and just overall, you need to have an apple every day. So I wanted to get deep into some of the things here. Now, all of our amino acids that make up our proteins, they help build up these our DNA. They are being instructed basically by our DNA. And when we have certain diseases that we need to basically use our epigenetic factors, that means go beyond our genes and correct the things using the foods to help change those our DNA. It speaks. Acids basically speak to other acids. This is how they express themselves. They express themselves either positively or negatively, depending on how you're eating. So, for example, all of our neurotransmitters are made from the proteins, and those proteins are made from the amino acids, and those amino acids are being instructed by our DNA. So, this is how all the things are being synthesized for proteins, carbohydrates, everything. So if you look at the big story, the alkaline is basically a base. The acids is communicating with all of our DNA and everything else. So I wanted to get into some of the what they call alkaline oils. A lot of people like the grapeseed oil, the olive oil, the coconut oil. And I have here, before we get deep into the coconuts, which has acid in it as well, I wanted to get you to understand how these triglycerides and how these fats are basically acids as well. When we think about different fats, they are also acids. We have many different fats that are acids, like the oleic acid, the alpha-linoleic acids, the EPAs, the DHAs, all of those are acids. So a lot of people are consuming like fatty acids within the flax seeds, within the chia seeds. Those have acids as well. They are basically the omega-3 fatty acids that are really, really needed for our intracellular function. These go inside of our cell, where our DNA is, where the mitochondria is, and wherever there is sensitivity to light, wherever there is sensitivity to the oxygen there, that's when it starts to actually do its function. So omega-3s have carbons and hydrogens. They do not have oxygen in it. So if you ever see a olive oil bottle that has a bubble in it, that means it has some oxygen in it and it has been rancified. You do not want oxygen inside of your oils. A flaxseed oil or chia seed, they are omega-3s, and I want to show you guys how hydrogen, so back into it, we have hydrogens at each and every point of this 18 chain. So I've taught this before about fat metabolism. We got hydrogens in each one, and we have carbons in all the inner parts. So every time we have 3 bonds or 3 chains, we have to erase one of the chains. And that's where we see our first double bond here. And we can count over 3 more. 1, 2, 3, and we see another chain that we have to erase. That's also, this is where they get the omega-3s from. This is where they find out if it's omega-3 or an omega-6. So the canola oil that we see, that is in a lot of different restaurants, they cook our French fries with it and all those different things. The kind of a bad oil, the corn oil, these things are having inflammatory responses. You don't want to use those type of oils, but they do have their benefits, and they do have their see, what happens is it uses arachidonic acids from our prostaglandins. These are our pain receptors. So all omega-6 has a pro-inflammatory response to it. And we cannot get these things from outside. Like, we have to get these from our diet. They can't convert into other fats. And so as the omega-3, we have to get them from our diet. There are some of the fatty acids that are non-essential, like the almond oil or the olive oil. Those are non-essential. They can be made up from the omega-3s and omega-6s. So they are more like an unsaturated fat. They're not poly. They're not many. So how we would count the almond oil, they are omega-9s. And also we have oleic acid here. And as I'm saying, oleic acid is also found in meat products. But like I said, they do have some pro-inflammatory responses, and they are within that canola oil section. So we would count that like there's hydrogens here, and they all have an electromagnetic field. This is what our heart needs too as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. At that 9th chain, there is our first bond. And when I'm saying bond, I'm saying that it is more sensitive to light at that long chain. So we need something that is saturated. A lot of the meats also have saturated fats, but they at that melting point that they use with a lot of the oils make these other byproducts called heterocyclic amines. And everything living and everything non-living has amine groups. We didn't talk about that yet. I think we talked about that within our hair structure when we was talking about protein. So we're looking for something that is monosaturated. So if we need something to cook with, we would either use something that has a high melting point, like the olive oil or the almond oil, or we use something that is very slow to oxidize, something that is stored at room temperature. We call that coconuts. So coconuts, they have something in it called lauric acid. Now the lauric acid gets inside of our cells, and we should be using more of the coconuts. I even drink the coconut oil. Make sure it's unrefined. You want to probably drink about 3 ounces of that daily if you are just wanting to keep a antimicrobial, antiviral, antibacterial lifestyle. This lauric acid can beat down candida. It can repair some of your cellular membranes. Inside of our mitochondria, we have bits of cholesterol right there, and it's usually found in the form of omega-3 or in lauric acid. So you'll find that very abundant if you start to drink the coconut oil, or just have it on a daily basis. Now, I'm sharing with you guys a lot of different things about acids. There's different parts of our body that will not even survive without the acids. Now, There's a long list of chemicals in pineapples and apples. We need certain things like these amino acids, these glycines, these phenylalanine, which is really, really good for our brain. So the pineapple has a number of different chemicals, just like everything else. I'm trying to share with you guys that the planet is based on chemical structures, and most of them are acids. You won't find one without nitrogen or nitric acid. So the planet is based on acids, and that's the language. In our brain, we have something called glutamic acid, which is an amino acid that is made from proteins that can build up proteins, and the protein that it builds up is the neurotransmitter called GABA. When there's too little of the glutamic acid, you will receive brain fog. You will have dementia or demented thoughts. This is a very important amino acid, and it has a nitrogen base to it. So we really, really need the nitrogen. This is critical for brain health, our cognition, our intelligence. If you have too much glutamic acid, that means that it didn't convert over from the glutamine. L-glutamine can be found in a lot of our everyday aminos, like some of the people are eating grains. They should not be eating grains, but we found a lot of glutamine there. But you'll find it also in beans. But if it does not transfer or convert over into glutamate, then you may end up with having more frequent seizures or epilepsy. So glutamic acid is a very, very important acid when it comes to our brain health. So we have all these different aminos. So let me go over a little bit of them. We have alanine, we have glycine, proline, theanine, and all of them have a nitrogen base to it. Once you get this type of information, you'll learn that the acidic bases, these are very beneficial. Inside of our kidneys, I don't heal no one's kidneys unless I'm using pantothenic acid. It's very, very critical. It is a coenzyme to the energy producing chemical reactions. Like we need pantothenic acid for fat metabolism or synthesizing. We need it for hormones. We need it for all of our carbohydrates. This maintains our nervous system. So without pantothenic acid, which is a vitamin B5, you won't have a good nervous system. Actually, B5 helps produce your red blood cells. And it also helps the sex hormones, your stress hormones, produce as well. So when I'm talking about acids, guys, we got to put ourselves on a different level of thinking. It's not always about alkaline, because we use these acids to build up the electrons to make more ATP, and that's what you call alkaline. In our colon, there is a bacteria that is inside of our colon we need to stay healthy. It's called Clostridium. And if you don't have Clostridium, you're missing pretty much one or two of these acids in your system. To keep a healthy colon, we have to have butyric acid. We also have to have propionic acid. And we also have to have acetic acid. And acetic acid is basically vinegar. This is the reason why these lower areas of our body can use the acetic acid to help them heal. Acetic acid is around 3.4. And most vaginal fluids are 3.4. So this is the reason why acetic acid would be very, very beneficial for the vagina. Now, we're using also lactic acid. So lactic acid can build up in the system in different areas of our bloodstream and cause a lot of different problems like lactic acidosis. We don't need that much of the lactic acid, but we need it to curate the bacteria in our colon. So these are some of the acids that we need on a daily basis. So I just wanted to share with you guys, I hope you guys have a clear understanding of what's going on with the acids. One other thing I wanted to share is that these triglycerides and when we're taking in polyunsaturated fats and we're taking in trans fats, which also have a negative charged nitrogen base, these are the things that cause rancidity in our system. So we don't want trans fat going up our thoracic duct. They use things like chylomicrons to go into our LDL systems and correct them. We don't need that, the trans fatty acids going in. So you get the trans fatty acids from the margarine, the lard, all those things that are really bad for your heart health. So I just wanted to share with you guys because a lot of people are on an alkaline diet and really haven't been shown the truth about how acids are behaving in our bodies, how they communicate with one another. And I hope that you guys should have seen the benefits of acids. So I wanted to thank you guys for listening. I think that I've shared, some pretty good information about the benefits of acids. You guys can start looking into these things a lot more. I want to thank you guys for listening. Until next time, shalom.